We're going to start the meeting right now. It is now 6:47. I would like to welcome everyone. My name is Alice Lowman. I am the chairwoman, the proud chairwoman of Community Board 5. Welcome and thank you all for taking your time for coming out tonight. We have a packed agenda, so we're going to start right now. We're going to start with Totem, and after we have Totem, then we'll have Totem and the Herkimer-Williams, and then afterwards we'll have the Plaza project. Okay. Just so you know who's in the room, Alice Lowman, proud chairwoman.
Miguel Feliciano, first vice chair.
Member of the Land Use Committee and board member.
Laura Santos, also member of the Housing Land Committee.
Roe Johnson, member of the Housing Land Use Committee and Sergeant at Arms.
Alice Land Use Committee and Department of Youth.
Okay. I'm looking for my board members. Did I miss any other my board members? Okay. Now that you know who's in the room, Totem, you can come up to do your presentation. Just if you can stay closer to the microphone, okay, that'd be fine. Yeah, that's good. Hello, everyone.
Hi. Good evening. You want us to start?
Go ahead.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you to the committee for having us here tonight. We know many of you, but for those of you who are not familiar with us, my name is Vivian Liao. I'm one of the I'm one of the principals of Totem. I'm joined here by Tucker Reed, my partner in the company, Liz Canella, our project manager. We have a number of our project team here today. Colvin Granham is with us, Jesse Mazur, our land use attorney. We have a number of other community, they're all coming up. Our whole project team is here. You'll get a chance to hopefully hear from them because we have put together a comprehensive update for you. I think as many of you know, the Herkimer-Williams proposal officially certified into ULURP at the beginning of the month, and so we have prepared the comprehensive update to give you all of the details of the proposal, also address a number of the questions that have come before us in the many months that we have spent with all of you. Before I get started on the presentation, I did just want to say on a personal note that it really has been a privilege working with you all in this body over the last several years on this project. We've gotten to know many of you individually, and I really think this project is better for the collaboration that many of you have brought to the table, choosing to engage with us, the love and service and commitment that you all have to your community is apparent, and I do believe, there are a number of details obviously still to be worked out. I trust that we are going to be able to do that because we have created a strong working relationship over the past several months, especially, but over the past several years of our working together. And while we have been at this for several years, I do believe that this is in many ways just the beginning of the process. If the project is approved, we plan to be here for the long haul. We plan to be good community partners working alongside all of you to make sure that the commitments that we have worked together to create in this project are made good upon, and that we can create a development that we all can be proud of. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to Chair Lowman, Brother Paul, Melinda, everyone for your leadership. And with that, I will turn you to the deck is in your folder if folks want to follow along.
Before you go into that, could they introduce themselves?
Oh, yes. Go ahead. Do we want to just go down the line? Yes.
My name is Colvin Granham. Tucker Reed.
Liz Canella.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to start on this slide. I know many of you have seen this, but for those who this is the first time, this is just to refresh your memory on some context here. You all know the importance of Broadway Junction as a transit hub. The slide shows how many people pass through the hub every day, as well as how much room there is to grow as compared to other major transit hubs. On the next slide, you see here, zooming in a bit further, demonstrating how the junction is truly that. It is a nexus point for several different community districts, 7 different neighborhoods that all converge at the site.
Sorry, when you're going through, would you just pull up a page?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
My page numbers are so small. Now I'm turning to slide 5 with the charts. These are the next 2 slides actually pull data from the racial equity report that is submitted as part of the ULURP application. This slide shows household incomes and unemployment rates as compared to the rest of Brooklyn and the city. And if you turn to the next slide, slide 6, this is particularly salient to our ongoing discussions around the housing that we would be creating at our site and the income levels that would be targeted. We're going to discuss this further in the program when we get to the housing program details, but as you can see here, outlined in red, a majority, specifically 38% of East New York residents fall into either the very low income or low income AMI brackets, which makes sense given the feedback that we've gotten consistently from this committee about the income levels that we should be targeting. The next slide, slide 9, actually this one doesn't have a slide number, but is the project area in context in more detail. The pink is the 4-block radius of our project in particular. The next slide, slide 10, shows the many reports and recommendations that have been made over the years about what should happen with the area. This is what we drew from when we developed the first proposal that was submitted to start the environmental review process. And the next slide, which I actually think might be misnumbered, but is the timeline, shows how that review period commenced in December of 2023. And we've spent the last 1.5 years or so conducting the comprehensive environmental studies, which we will talk through in more detail tonight. And then the next slide shows the feedback that was, working with this body, with local stakeholders. We summarized to comprise the update for the Herkimer-Williams proposal that was submitted as part of the ULURP application. And then I'm going to turn it over now to Tucker. He's going to walk through the program details, just so you know what's coming. And then Liz is going to walk through the environmental review analysis results, as well as some answers to previous questions that the body has, or that this committee has posed to us.
Thank you. The next slide looks like this. Has this table with blue and yellow. I'm going to talk through each of these components in subsequent slides in a minute, but just to give people a feel for the evolution of this project, we've been meeting with Community Board 5 for more than 3 years at this point. Our initial proposal had many elements that we were told were not of interest or anathema really to the Community Board. And so we worked really hard to remove those elements and update them to reflect the plan that you see here today. So I'm going to talk them through in greater detail.
I'm sorry, could you speak up because it's really hard to hear.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 2.
Are there any more packets?
Oh, I have more. No,
Can
this
I?
is
That's
not.
yours.
Just 1 second, we're going to try to get some back.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's no projector, right?
No.
If it's okay, I think I'm going to proceed because I think a couple more copies are coming, but this is much better now, right? So I was mentioning on that table, you can see the progression over the years from the original proposal to where we ended up now. I'm going to talk to each program element and kind of give you that update. The updated proposal is reflected here on page 12 and consists of 4 new buildings, 3 of which are designated hopefully for 100% affordable housing, and a 4th building that is designated to commercial and industrial use. I'm going to kind of talk through each of those elements. The next slide, slide 13, actually talks through the proposed elements of the land use change. It changes through the rezoning, we can change the density, the kind of low-rise manufacturing use to higher-rise affordable housing and commercial uses. Brother Paul, to the extent, or Chair Lowman, to the extent you want to go through the actions in greater detail later, maybe we can do that, but just... Okay. So the first building, Building B on this plan, would be designated as 100% affordable housing. Would really work to, hopefully with the city, with HPD, the city's Department of Housing Preservation and Development, to designate that building for what's called the ELA program, which is very low-income affordable housing, for people earning between 30 and 80% of AMI. And AMI is a term I'm sure some of you are familiar with, but many may not be, is the area median income kind of set at the metro area for New York. 30% roughly equates to $30,000 to $40,000 per year, up to $80,000 to $90,000 per year. So the designation of these units, hopefully up to 230 in that building, would really be meant for very low-income residents of family owners. The next slide really breaks that down in terms of Building B. That shows the income levels and the kind of distribution by unit type and size. I think it's interesting to think about kind of personal vignettes about what this could mean for people in the community and who would be qualifying for each of these units. So I think you can really think about at the 30% of AMI level, it's really like a single person kind of working an entry-level job. We can have a one-bedroom studio apartment here in East New York. At the 50% of AMI level, I think you can think of like a new firefighter or teacher or labor unioner who would qualify at that level for the kind of 50%, 40-50% of AMI. And at the 80% of AMI level, I think we think of like two entry-level labor union members, right? Or maybe raising a family in East New York, or could access this as a home for their families. So really meant to design the AMIs to meet the needs that were kind of discussed in the previous page about income levels. The next slide, slide 16, talks about the commercial space that could be created in the project and the types of companies and retailers that could potentially come and locate here. This is at Building D. And, it's approximately up to 400,000 square feet of commercial space. We've had a lot of conversations with potential companies over the last few years about the potential of locating here in Broadway Junction. It's still many years off to be able to have like serious conversations about lease signings. But we've talked to a variety of potential commercial users, from recording studios to energy companies to recreational uses to local small businesses or businesses that want to stay in the neighborhood. I think you can think of 400,000 square feet. It's a little bit hard to conceptualize maybe, but the new building at 2440 Fulton Street that the city just built is roughly that equivalent size. So you can think about the sheer amount of commercial space that could be part of this project. The next slide talks through the types of retailers. And we've kind of heard loud and clear from folks throughout this process a real desire to see space set aside for small retailers, mom and pop retailers, which I think we could accommodate very well in buildings B, C, and D. But in the final stage, Building E, actually leaving some room for a potential larger footprint tenant, like a larger grocery store, or a movie theater, or a recreational use. And it's kind of, we've heard loud and clear that the desire for a mix of both small business, retail, and larger format that could come In keeping with that, well, now we're moving on to the educational component. And building D, we have been in conversation after a lot of encouragement from this board over many years about potentially approaching the City University of New York or some kind of equal institution of higher education to come set up shop at Broadway Junction. And while, again, we're years away from being able to deliver that space, we're very proud to share that we have received a letter from the Chancellor of CUNY, who is committed to taking a look at accepting a free option from us to potentially come to the space in the next 5 years at a significant footprint. We're not talking about just like one classroom or two classrooms, but potentially up to 85,000 square feet for a branch of CUNY in the neighborhood. And so we're excited about continuing that conversation with CUNY, and we've heard the board loud and clear about desire for that to happen. The next slide, while we are kind of building towards that later building that can house CUNY and commercial uses, in the first phase, building B, which will be about 230 units, as I mentioned, of equally affordable housing, we also wanted to start putting forward ideas for commercial uses that could potentially plant seeds for the future. And so we've been conceptualizing with a lot of our partners in the community here at East New York LBC, Central Brooklyn EBC, the Bach Network, which operates the IBC, about the idea of a green economy hub. And one of our partners, LaShawn, you want to say a few words quickly about the concept we're working on?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As Tucker stated, we've been in conversations about building a green energy hub, and I'm not sure how many of you are aware, though, about the New York State legislation that says that New York State will be fossil fuel free by 2040, allegedly. But they're looking at alternative sources of energy, and so there's a huge wind farm being built. There's a huge wind farm being built at the Brooklyn Army Terminal right now, and although it was slated to be shut down, they received authorization recently to continue building. And so, understanding what was coming down the pike, we started to build a workforce development training program centered around offshore wind and other renewable energy spaces. And so, because we're opening a trade school right next door in Brownsville, we've been in conversations about expanding and bringing that resource here with the training that will be literally needed for the future. So if the wind farm, I'm going to wrap up by saying this, if the wind farm was completed and open tomorrow, the entire workforce would probably have to be flown in, because a workforce for alternative energy, offshore wind specifically, does not exist right now. So what better way to prepare young people, even adults in this community that are suffering from underemployment? We might as well just build it now, right, to prepare for what we know is coming. And so we're starting the process in Brownsville. We're prepared to expand here in East New York to build a hub to prepare for future jobs.
I'm moving on now to slide 20. And I want to talk a little bit about the open space network that the project will create. So we have been in conversations with our friends at EBC, who I think you're going to hear from later today, about the corner of Herkimer and Van Sinden, which is a lot that we currently own that was purchased from Calvary Church. And the long-term plan for that parcel is to become a park or a public open space. We've even been working at the encouragement of our friends at the community board to try to work with the city about the idea of expanding that footprint to the northern side of the block as well. And so we're in kind of final stages of conversations with the EDC about the creation of a public space there, working together to create that, and we've committed to maintaining that space. I'll let our friends at EDC talk about that more later if they'd like to. But the new open space would kind of anchor the new fourth building development that would take place here, right across the street from the Broadway Junction train station. And so a new marquee public space right across the street from Calvary Church. And then a number of new plazas, sidewalk eye widenings, traffic calming measures, other lighting improvements, street tree planting, street furniture development that would really knit together these new buildings into a kind of cohesive green network and hopefully help a lot with traffic calming measures in the neighborhood, hopefully help a lot with public safety improvements as it relates to lighting and neglect, particularly underneath the MTA infrastructure there, which for many years really divided the neighborhood. And so we're excited about this opportunity. The next slide talks about kind of in more detail about what those pedestrian connections between the new buildings could look like, and the kind of desire lines that people will have moving between these different buildings and the ways that the pedestrian environment can be improved to do that. There were earlier iterations of this plan that talked about closing down Herkimer Street completely and at the to vehicular traffic, and just making it for pedestrian traffic. At the urging of the community board, we worked really hard in city planning to remove that element from this plan. So that no longer exists. That street will still be open to vehicular traffic, but with improved pedestrian experience. I think to that end, I'm going to turn it over now to one last thing, sorry. There are a number, as you all know very well, a number of ongoing capital infrastructure improvements happening at Broadway Junction. There's a $500 million MTA project going on at the Broadway Junction train station to make it ADA accessible. There's the recent completion of Callahan Kelly Park, which is right across the street from 2440 Fulton Street, as well as a number of other recently announced sidewalk improvements, public space improvements that I think our friends at EDC will talk about later tonight. There's been concern expressed to us about making sure that any private development does not impede those long-awaited infrastructure investments that I know folks have been waiting for many decades. And so we really tried to map out here the timelines as we understand it from the MTA and EDC about when those improvements would be completed, when we would enter into design development of the buildings, actual real design development, which cannot take place until the rezoning is complete, and then groundbreaking and construction on our sites. I'm happy to discuss this more in the question and answer if folks want, but really kind of mapping out that the way the timing is lining up, particularly the major ADA improvements at Broadway Junction would be complete before we would ever break ground on it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Elizabeth to talk through the environmental.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so forgive me, these slides are a little technical, so I'm going to reference my notes a little bit, so I'll look down, but I'll also be looking up at you guys. So the community board has, the committee specifically has asked questions on infrastructure, on shadows, and now that we're at the official beginning of ULUR, we have what's called the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or the DEIS. And so that begins to answer some of the questions the committee and the full board have had over the last year or so, right? So on slide 23, on the right-hand side, you'll see that there were a number of different chapters that were studied, right? And so just a reminder, Vivian brought it up earlier, this process started, the environmental process started with what was called a scoping hearing, which many of you submitted public testimony at, or written testimony in December of 23. And just wanted to assure you that a lot of the changes that both Vivian and Tucker talked about, the inclusion of Herkimer Street, so the removal of the mapping, reduction of heights, increasing of affordable housing up from 600, all of that were studied in the environmental analysis, so it's up to date for them. And so all the categories that were studied are on the right-hand side, and we're happy to say that the majority of the chapters, there are no adverse impacts. There are 3 categories that we identified some impacts, and so those are listed on the left-hand side. Transportation, air quality, and construction. all in and around sort of transportation or traffic, right? So we're continuing to analyze, so this is the draft EIS. The final EIS will come a little later in Euler. We're continuing to analyze the data, working in close consultation with DCP and DOT, so the Department of Transportation, to determine all the best mitigations for those impacts. So that includes traffic signals, crosswalk widenings, a new traffic light at Herkimer-Williams, and as well as adjusting timing throughout the neighborhood on the signals to help with traffic throughout the neighborhood. And so all of those mitigations are studied and presented in what's, again, the DEIS. But there were some specific questions the community board had that fall in this category. So if you flip to the next slide.
Slide 24.
Okay, so slide 24, you should see a graphic. So on the left-hand side are the original heights that were presented in 2023. And on the right-hand side are those modifications that were made. And you'll see on the following slide, so slide 25, that these adjustments allowed us to have no significant impact to Callahan-Kelly Playground. So it's a little hard and technical to read, but that graphic on slide 24, let me pull it up for you guys.
I got it.
Okay, thank you. So on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, you're essentially seeing the project-generated shadows on Callahan-Kelly. Again, in the fall and winter months, there's some minimal shadows, about an hour, hour and a half, in that red portion. So this small red portion on essentially the entrance of Broadway Junction right now. And so wanted to make sure that you guys saw that and how that related to the building heights. So we can take questions on that, but I'll go to the next slide as well. So for sustainable building practices, at last meeting, we were also asked about LEED initiatives and sort of how we build and our ethos. So in all of our projects, we strive to build projects that protect the environment, or at least don't hurt the environment or cause any more harm. And so these range from implementing things like bioswales that you see on the slide that improve like the stormwater management, creation of puddles and pooling, as well as incorporating green roofs to help with the urban island effect in New York City that makes the neighborhood hotter. And specifically, this was a question too, we're striving to obtain passive house designation in that first building that Tucker spoke to, in building B, the first 100% affordable building. And then I know we've been talking a lot, last slide 27, the community board encouraged us to revamp a survey that we've used for the project. So before we took questions formally, I just wanted to flag, especially for folks who maybe are not on the community board, that we are collecting continued feedback, right? So we have the outline of the footprint of the project, but we're continuing to build out the program and want community front and center, obviously. So with that, I'll turn it back. Yeah.
Just quickly in summation before we turn chair to Q&A, is that good? Mm-hmm. Okay. If I could just refer you back to slide 12, just as a summary again of the program here. The rezoning would enable 4 new buildings on the properties that we control are our co-applicants. The first building, building B, we would strive to do 100% affordable housing at very low income term sheet level like we described. The second building, building C, again, try to do ground floor retail with 100% affordable housing. You know, we've heard some feedback from the board at various points that there may be a desire to do a little bit more workforce housing on that building, but we're agnostic. Whatever direction we go, we're excited for the recommendations from the board to guide our work moving forward. The third building, building D, would hopefully consist of a significant footprint for CUNY, along with affordable housing in the balance of the building. And then finally, building E would be the building that would bring online a significant amount of retail and commercial space for jobs. Chair, I don't know if, or Brother Paul, if...
Well, you could, so we'll take a few questions and answers right now. I'm gonna start with the board members. Any board members have any questions that they wanna ask Totem? Just raise your hand and I'll acknowledge you, or come up front, board members. If you have a question that you wanna pose, come up front. This way you can have the mic and everyone can hear. We'll just pass the mic. Because he's recording. Stay on the side. No, come over here.
The question I have is directed to, we understand that this project is a C6-4 zoning. And we in East New York decided to do some research on what this actually entails when it comes to the zonings. And the question is that this particular project, this particular zoning allows for, at any juncture, to go from retail to housing to X, Y, and Z. Why not choose a different zoning that's strictly focused on residential? That's one. And when we tried to do the research in C6-4 zoning, we had to go as far away as in Jamaica, Queens, where under this zoning, sales for condos for one bedroom was $690,000. In one South First building in Williamsburg, a studio cost was $4,500 a month. I could add, multiply, and divide. And that's way above the average median income for East New York, so it's very concerning. So when we see this particular zoning, we see displacement at its best. And also in part of your presentation, you initially mentioned, but we are looking to target the 40 or 30% of X amount for 30% of AMI, 40% of AMI, but you're not listing the actual amount of units in that specific document, which then lead us to say, you're going to come back and say only 2 for 30% AMI? Why is it not fixed? There's a whole host of zoning concerns. So when it's just thrown out there, R6, C6, the community must have to ask themselves, what is it? And is this a blessing or a curse? Is this looking to replace, displace, and remove community on those lines? So the question is around that C6 zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to answer?
Yeah, thank you. So there's a couple of, thank you for the question, and it's something that we've talked a lot about with this committee over the last 2 years. There's a couple of things there. Al, you're completely right. C6-4 allows for a variety of usage, retail and housing in particular. There are some things that will be codified in this project outside of zoning, and we've talked a lot about the idea of a restrictive declaration. And our intention to do 100% affordable housing in all of the housing buildings. There are no market rate condos that are contemplated here. We would enter into a binding legal agreement with a number of community groups who could hold our feet to the fire there and make sure that we work together to approach HPD to enable the income ranges that we discussed. And I would just point out, I think the table on slide 15 actually shows, and you know that we're at an early stage, there's years to go in order to deliver this project, right? But slide 15 shows the income bands and then the distribution in units in an emblematic project if we were to build 230 units. And I believe it shows a roughly equal breakdown of units at 30% of AMI, 50 and 60% of AMI, and up to 80% of AMI. And I'm also joined here by my land use counsel, Jesse Mazer. I don't know, Jesse, if you want to mention anything else about the C6 zoning.
You're very correct in, hi, my name is Jesse Mazer, I'm Land Use Council. I've been in this board before, but a long time ago. I was vice right here. You mentioned C64, and I wanted to talk to that. And you're correct, it is a high-density zoning district that allows for a variety of uses, including housing and commercial and retail. That's not what's going to be happening here. Let me explain to you why. In addition to zoning you see, as Tucker has implied, there are a number of regulatory documents that go along. One of the actions that is before you is not just the rezoning. The rezoning is, I would say, 50% of the actions before you. The other 50% is what's called a large-scale special permit. And the large-scale special permit sets down the rules for this development, irrespective of the underlying zoning. So there will be plans that will have charts in them, have floor area distribution. Those would be part of the special permit drawings. Those special permit drawings then get attached to what Tucker said before was a restrictive declaration that is executed, is negotiated with the city, and is recorded against the property. So you're absolutely right that C64, left on its own, has a great variety of possibilities of how it can be used. But there's a set of, if you use the land use expression, handcuffs in this, that the large-scale special permit takes away that whole variety of options and limits it specifically. Tucker has also referenced, which I will not speak to, the potential community benefits agreement, which similarly could be another set of handcuffs, also legally enforceable, and I have done more of those than anybody, and I'll have to answer my mayor on that.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, okay. So we're on the land use committee, so we're used to this type of jargon with the meaning behind it for the project. But for our community members that have come out to be part of the presentation, if it's okay, I just want to ask him to restate that in a way that maybe someone who's not on the committee. In English.
You're asking a lawyer to speak plainly? Yeah. I'm very excited to hear that. I'm going let me try to put it in non-legal jargon. We're here tonight because we've asked you to vote and have an opinion on two zoning public actions. One of them is kind of simple. It's to change the existing zoning that's on the site, the existing rules and regulations about how much you can build, how high you can build, how wide you can build, where curb cuts are, all that great stuff. We're actually going to change that to give us the ability to build greater densities, and therefore we can build more housing units. Right now, you can build all the commercial that we're probably talking about under the existing zoning more or less that number, but the opportunity here is to create a housing complex. That's the first action that's important. The second action for you is a permit to allow us to build the buildings that our architects have envisioned, and to, in some ways, transfer some development rights among our own sites, not from anybody else. And so the permit gives us that flexibility, but it also gives us the restrictions that limit all of the options that we're currently seeing. Options, and that's important because otherwise it would be an endless number of scenarios. You can imagine when you are here, you have to study every one. But in some way, the permit becomes a way to manage this process. And you can say, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to work. And it's not just a wish, it's a set of drawings that are drawn by the architects, that are stamped with their professional seal, and then approved in this process, and they get attached. Literally, they get attached to the restrictive declaration. So let's assume for a moment, it's not going to happen, that my clients behind me decide that this is over, they've had enough fun, and they're going to go away and they can sell the site to somebody else, and they'll do whatever the hell they damn please. That can't happen. That restrictive declaration runs with the land. And whoever comes in next, that's the rules they must live by, and everybody else down the road has to live by those rules. So I hope I made it a little bit clearer. I apologize.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Johnson. And then Brother Paul.
Okay, so thank you for being here. And every time you've come, I've asked about homeownership and equity opportunities. I'm going to ask about that again. I recognize that the timeline is pushed up, and if we're doing this restrictive declaration agreement, I understand that HPD does not have a product for home ownership anymore, but they used to have products for home ownership. They used to have products for tenants to own programs. Can we build that into a restrictive declaration agreement on a specific timeline if it can't happen immediately?
Thank you, Will. And yes, you've been consistent for years on this question. We appreciate it. There are a couple of 100% homeownership programs, we understand it, and we would be, happy to try to incorporate them into the project. The feedback that we've gotten so far is that the buildings aren't well suited to that program because of the footprint and size, et cetera. But if it's a recommendation from the board, we will continue to have those discussions with HPD. And, there may be neighboring sites in the area that would like to entertain 100% home ownership that we will continue conversations with.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Sorry. Brother.
Yes, sir.
Again, thank you for the presentation. There are a couple of concerns. When you gave the breakdown in building B, but that's the only funded building. This project is not funded. Your projections are doing building B and HPD now with Ella. Right? That's good.
None of the projects are funded yet.
Well,
yes.
You're proposing to fund building B, right?
We're proposing
with
to
HPD.
one day do all three buildings with HPD, yes.
At this present time, you're prepared, you've given me the outline for building B, and those affordable housing units is 231 units.
Yes.
That's the building right now we're focusing on.
Because it's the first phase.
It's the first phase. Okay. Right now, you presented to us HPD funding for building B, 231 units. The rest of this is projected. Right now, I only see actual facts for building B. Now, my concern with building B is that you gave a clear distinction to AMI. You didn't how many, like a 2-bedroom, are they 10 bedrooms at 30% or 4 bedrooms? That's not broken down. So you can take a look at it. It said 30%, 42 units at 30%. But you're saying that's 2 studios, 4 1-bedrooms, 10 2-bedrooms. It's not broken down. So I don't know how many I'm getting at 30%. I might get a bunch of studios.
I see.
There's no clear distinction, and that's very important to us because we have families here. So clearly, those who understand what I'm saying, they're saying the number of units that would be at a certain rate, but they're not saying what's the size of those units for our families that need these apartments.
It only says how many families.
Yes, so I'm going to go step by step.
Wait. You got the mic? Ask the question.
Okay.
I don't want it to get out of control. You ask the question, let him know.
Question number one. Question number two, dealing with this thing, because I'm writing it down, is that we definitely have to have a restrictive CBA, dealing with the community, not with the city. We want our own local nonprofit organizations to oversee this because this zoning is commercial. It's inclusive of residential. But this is commercial, and folks, if you don't know, I'm just asking you a question. You can build a shelter there if you're under that zoning. You can't under that zoning?
No, Brother Paul, we've gone through this before.
No.
I'm happy to answer the question again, yes.
Okay. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, so this is, I have to make it clear to the community.
Yes.
I just need him to answer that question.
I'm happy to answer.
So the point is that I'm just raising the point why we have to have a deed restricted CBA agreement with the community, because these are things we have to, and I'm going to clarify on some of the other things, but the last point, your project, I see that within your file, you have 5 units, but you talk about 4. This says a 5th building within here.
It's parcel A, which is the park, which is the park.
Okay, so we don't, there's just different things we gotta clarify. I'm just gonna leave it like that, and we'll later.
So could you speak to what he was talking about, the parcel A?
Sure. There are parcels labeled B, C, D, and E, as you see in the drawing. There is no parcel A, because that is the park parcel on the corner of Van Sinderen and Herkimer. We don't describe a building there because it won't be a building, it will be a public open space. And then I think
You said parking?
no, park, public open space, yes.
It says a fifth building.
I think with the question around HPD, your question, Brother Paul, around the distribution of units around unit type, right? Studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. It's heavily guided and legislated by the HPD type sheet program, ELA, and it's an equal distribution of each unit type, we believe, but we're happy to provide more information to you, Brother Paul, to add to the table if it's helpful.
Okay.
You want to ask a question?
I'm sorry. Well,
Thank you once again. I noticed that 40% AMI got 0, and that's pretty close to our AMI. So I'd like an explanation why.
I'm sorry, say that again. I'm so sorry.
No,
Say that
But
you have
40%
AMI, you have zero units there.
Right.
And that's very close to our AMI.
So this is emblematic of a typical building. HPD allows you to choose a certain number of AMI bands. So we're showing you an emblematic breakdown of how it can work across across AMI types. If the community board has a preference to see units at 40% versus 50%, please recommend that, and we're happy to discuss it with you.
Yes.
And can I just address? I forgot, Brother Paul, your question about homeless shelter.
Your ability under that zoning.
Right. To build a homeless shelter.
Yes, because we've seen things happen where developers have owned property and we have an agreement. Let's take Radnor downtown Markets. They promised a lot down there. They had a CBA. They sold it to somebody else. The CBA was no employee, and they built what they wanted to build, and they never built affordable housing down there.
So why don't we address, Jesse, you want to speak to the special permit and restriction on uses quickly on the shelter?
I mean, you're absolutely correct about the history of what's happened in many places, but that's why the permit here and the restricted deck become the comfort zone that won't occur. But you're right, left to its own devices, C zoning, which is really, it's C, you think it's commercial zoning, it's really mixed use zoning. It allows both residential and commercial. We do have some commercial districts that do not allow any residential. I'm sorry, my club days are over. So you're right that there is a broad potential of uses that could occur. Some of them that would be less popular than others. That can be is limited here by the restricted declaration, and of course, as Tucker said, and you have said, we fully anticipate a community benefits agreement that will be legally binding and will set forth the rules of how the development will go. But left to its own devices, without those restrictions, your concerns would be more than right.
Thank you. Odessa Finn, Ms. Ethel, Boris, Mr. Face. Y'all can stand up because I wanted to move quickly because then I want to bring the church up. I would like the church to speak, okay? So we're going to take maybe a few more questions and then we'll have the church come before us.
Thank you again for your presentation and your partnership. I had a question about the draft impact statement. And I can look at the executive summary that's in that portal, but who's conducted the study, who will be conducting it, and And I'm just want to make sure I'm understanding the chart on page 23, where we have the areas that were studied in the conclusion that there would be no significant impact. What's significant, what's not significant, who's defining significant, so just some kind of background on where the data is coming from.
Thank you. So we're joined by our environmental consultant, Joey Quincy from AKRF. And Joey, you can just introduce your firm a little bit and talk about the environmental impact.
Sure. Can everyone hear me? Joey Quincy, I work at AKRF. AKRF is well known in New York City. Provides training services, including environmental review services. So our firm conducted an environmental review over the last year. We also developed the scope of work, which was presented at the scoping hearing. And so the draft environmental impact statement is prepared in accordance with the Seeker Technical Manual, and that's the City Environmental Quality Review Technical Manual. And so the draft environmental impact statement was prepared with the latest version of that, dated 2021. So many of these impact determinations that are shown in the presentation have been, ascertained by conducting the environmental review in accordance with city regulations. And all of these draft environmental impact statement was reviewed by the Department of City Planning as well as the Department of Transportation. And so the
I want to answer your question. You said, how do you determine what's a significant impact?
Right.
And I'm going to do it in English.
Thank you, because we know that there are asthma rates, there are respiratory rates in the Bronx that are significant because of all of the trucks and all of the traffic and all of the construction and those types of things. So we want to know how that's going to impact us here.
To make it really simple, what an environmental impact study tries to do is, if you think about it, the first sentence, these are the existing conditions. This is what's happening without this project. What's the status of traffic, air quality, noise, all of those issues today without this project? Then, like a layer cake, you do two things. One, you assume there's a certain amount of time that's going to take place before this project happens. So how much will the background actually build without our project? In other words, we're not going to be here, build for 2 or 3 years. What's going to happen to the traffic during those 2 or 3 years, even without us? How much does it grow? So now you have the second layer of the cake. The existing conditions and the anticipation of growth of all of and then you layer on our project. And what you're looking for, what the regulations tell you to do, the law requires you to do right here, is what impact you're having in terms of changing the percentage. In other words, what's the impact on the service level? And the city has determined in certain areas different criteria for certain different things we study. We have very little tolerance for bad air. We have, in New Yorkers, we have greater tolerance for noise, but we have a way to mitigate it. We're somewhat used to traffic, so what we look at, it's not that traffic is going to disappear. It's not going to disappear. It's here already. We're not disappearing. Is what's the percentage of growth that's going to occur by our project? And what's important is not the percentage of growth, but you think it would be. It's what's going to happen to you if you're driving when you come to that intersection. Will that intersection now grow? Or however long it took when we get through that intersection today without us? How much time are we adding to that? And what can we do to make that impact less? And one of the things we study very extensively in the Department of Transportation is the whole network. And there are some streets that are more crowded than others. So how can you allocate time and lights to more crowded and to literally take it from the streets that don't need it? And so when you look at that, when that percentage goes up, that within a certain prescribed level, that becomes a significant impact. So it's not like when we say we don't have a significant impact on certain areas, that's not the same as you live in this area. boy, there's a lot of noise on that corner. Yeah, there's a lot of noise on that corner today, not tonight. And so we're not going to add significantly to that noise. So we say we have to go to a significant impact. You're going to say, you're crazy. That corner is noisy. That's not what the environmental impact is. Try to look at the impact that the project will have and what can we do to the greatest extent possible not to reduce those impacts to become almost reset to the level of that second layer of the cake, not the third.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, you spoke about the height of the new building, and you said it's going to come down by 60 feet. Can you tell me how many stories that is in terms of 20 stories, 30 stories? I also wanted to know about what type of retail space or what type of businesses will be coming into the area. You talked about different types of retail, whether it be big box or mom and pop shop. And I also wanted to know.
Last question.
Oh, okay.
You got so much going on here today. I don't mean to be rude, but I just want, you to ask your questions so that this way they can answer, because I want to give other people a chance to ask their question, and I want the church to speak, because I know we have a lot that we want to unpack ourselves. Parking. That is a part of the project that they're not talking about. We definitely need parking, so that's why I said just ask your one or two questions, and then let's move on.
My question was parking. That was my last question, was what was going on, and with all the people that are going to be coming in the community, and you're looking at transportation, but what about the parking?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The floors. She asked about the floor.
The height, thank you, Chair. So if you turn to page 24 in the presentation, you'll see the proposed heights of the buildings on the right-hand side as they stand now. And you see 245 feet up to 345 feet. I think a good rule of thumb is to think of each floor as about 12 to 14 feet tall. So we're talking about buildings that are 20 to 30 stories on each side. Okay, and then the question around retail, there's also...
So that's how many floors?
20 to 30 stories, right across a range of different buildings. And the question about retail, so one dramatic slide here, sorry, I want to move quickly. Where we talked in our presentation about the idea of setting aside retail for small footprint, small businesses, mom and pop businesses in the first couple of buildings, B, C, and D, where there's not a lot of retail, so you can actually really craft. Part of making retail accessible for people that are small business owners is not to give them too much, to make it a footprint that they can afford to be in and operate their business. And so a lot of the project calls for small-scale retail. The final building, Building E, is the one place where there is proposed allowable for larger footprint retail, because a lot of the studies and also a lot of the feedback that we heard over the years was some desire for larger footprint retail as well, not exclusively small business, but a grocery store, a recreational use or a movie theater, a Chuck E. Cheese, or things to do with kids. And so there is an opportunity to do that in that last building.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm going to address parking now?
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Yes. Obviously, an introduction of a bunch of new units where there hasn't been them before. There are going to be questions about parking. Now, on the one hand, one could flippantly say, well, you're right next to a subway station with 5 subway lines, so why are we even talking about parking? That's not how we would address that. The 100% affordable buildings do not require by zoning parking, and so there will be no parking in those first couple of buildings. The final building, though, is anticipating about 200 units, 200 new parking spaces. There is also the new city building that was just built across the street at 2440 Fulton Street, which includes 300 parking spaces. It's already new and online today. Also, none of the improvements that we're talking about discuss taking away existing on-street parking. The idea of relocating some of the parking in the new open space where the MTA kind of uses park haphazardly may occur. There were 14 spaces that we counted in the past. But for anyone who spent a lot of time in the junction lately, I think folks would agree that the MTA has really started to clean up their act for the area underneath those overpasses. They repaved a lot of the parking lots. They've striped them so that you can get now more efficient parking there for their workers. They've also built a lot of new lighting and streetscape improvements there already. So with the upgrade of the existing parking that's on site for the MTA workers and the introduction of almost 500 new parking spaces, it may not go far enough, Chair, to what some people desire, but it is a significant amount of new parking in the area.
You said 500 spaces?
Correct.
And that's gonna be on the last?
Yeah, that was a quick nuance, though there's parking in the last two buildings, so building D and building E.
But as I mentioned, there are 300 new spots that are just coming online at the city building at 2440 Fulton Street today.
Right.
It's also publicly accessible parking.
You have to pay.
So with the parking, right, we know that with the new law that you don't have to have parking. However, living in a building across the street, mom and pop, no car, or have a car and they gotta park 5 blocks or across the Long Island Railroad and walk, right? Let's take into consideration that your child gets sick and you gotta go to the hospital. Are you expecting them to get on the train at night when it runs only 1 train per hour? We have to take in consideration that we have cars. People have cars, and when you have family, you need a car because the transportation is so expensive. It's $3 per ride. So a mother, a father, and 2 kids, do the math. That money they can take and put in their gas tank, and they can ride for a couple of days. So I am stressing parking. You know, I know there's half of the parking space, EDC, have half of the parking space. I'm asking you guys to talk to EDC, talk to MTA, come together and be able to put some additional parking for the people in the community. We deserve it. We deserve it. Let's get some parking. It's a whole nother lot. We have the new park, Cunningham Park. We have some other sceneries. Utilize that open space to put some sort of parking for the people that's going to be in that building. How many units is it going to be total?
Up to 1,000.
Up to 1,000. Up to 1,000. Please, please, please talk to your counterparts. Please, that's all I'm asking. I'm not going to keep going back and forth. Please talk to your counterparts. The community deserves it.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The church, Boris, I'm sorry, Boris, and then the church can come up.
So very quickly, I have a point of commentary, a point of information, and a question. So with the affordability levels, I look to Chestnut Commons as a North Star because they were able to reach 20% of AMI. So I'm not going to ask a question for this, but you have advocates here that would love to throw down with you against HPD or towards HPD to reach those affordability margins, 20% AMI, knowing that our affordability margins lie within 30 to 40% AMI. Excuse me for speaking jargon, there are income bands for that. What I'm talking about is just making it affordable for our people, right? Point 2, so I'm gonna take your rule of thumb, 12 floors, and provide information to the public. Page 24. So building B, you take the footage, you divide it by 12 feet, you have a 20-story building. Building C, you have a 24-story building. Building D, you have a 29-story building. And building E, a 22-story building. Correct?
Correct.
All right, good. And then my third point. By the way, I do have a fondness for Totem, and I let them know, right? You let them know, as Brother Paul said, they're gluttons for questioning, i.e. punishment, therefore, because we throw down in this committee. Make sure that you don't think that we don't. We know our stuff and we throw down hard here. All right, so point 3. I'm very glad you mentioned a restrictive declaration. i.e. a deed restriction, i.e. a restrictive covenant, all synonymous, ain't not so dusty. Good, all right, so I just want to make it clear, this might be a yes or no question. Now, within that restrictive declaration, you are entertaining or open to making sure that all those units are affordable units, right? Especially since, as per HPD term sheets, especially since the financing is not secured for all the buildings except for that one building, right? That you will restrict any commercial space that comes out of this, and hopefully more minimal, right? Because we have fears that commercial is not a demand in this community. And I actually kind of agree that it's more of a demand in downtown Brooklyn and Williamsburg, Greenpoint waterfront. Right? We don't have a commercial square footage to the concentration that we do have as being proposed, right? But that there is, that if you convert anything of that nature to residential, that it will be for affordable, right, units. And then the last one is that we could probably get small business space mandated within that restricted declaration up to the tune of like maybe 25% for a certain amount of years. So I think that's more of a yes or no, that we can get that down in a restricted declaration / covenant restriction / deed restriction.
Right. Thank you.
So just a simple yes or no to 6 questions. I will say yes and, because I can't just do a simple yes or no there, right? Okay. Yes, we are committed to a restricted declaration. Yes, we are committed to trying to do 100% affordable housing, and we're happy to codify that there. Yes, the set aside for commercial space is very important, and in fact, you won't have to take our word for it, the rezoning actually accommodates it, and that buildings B, C, and D are in the C64, but building E is actually in the M16 designation, which does not allow for housing development. So that 440,000 square feet of space could never be used for housing development. I think you answered. Oh, and can I just make one point of order before I think Bishop Edwards is going to come up? I think, not a point of order, but a point of clarity. I think, forgive me the confusion, when you were talking about a 5th building, there is a site owned by Calvary Church, that I think the bishop is going to speak to, that is included in the rezoning area. It is not part of the large-scale deed restriction that Jesse was discussing, which means, for all intents and purposes, the church controls their own destiny on our site, and our project that we've been discussing tonight, we control our own destiny on executing. The church will receive the benefit of the upzoning if this rezoning happens, and have some significant new development rights on the site that they will choose to do what they would like with, but that point of clarity on the 5th building.
No, we'll let him finish. Let him finish.
That's all.
Okay. We're gonna, Mr. Franklin, you have a question? Before you have your question, I wanna say to Tucker, with the church, your project has been certified already with the church included?
Correct.
Okay. Franklin? Okay. Terrell? Real quick, and then the pastor. It's a question, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So my question, super quick, thank you for everything. My question is, can you make the data and surveys you do more public, right? Because you say surveys, you say the data, you say the people you spoke to, but as the chair just mentioned, the community is concerned about parking. So like, did you get that in your surveys? Like, can you provide us with some more insight? Because I think that'll help you all prove your case, you know? Like, tell us who you spoke to, because the chart says, you know, you all order CB16 and CB5. So were your studies more in CB16? Were they more in CB5? Like, you know, are we including families? Are they mostly single people? Are the people you're surveying the AMI of this neighborhood, or the AMI that you want to come in? So I think if you provide some more clarity and transparency around the data, the surveys you have, that would be great. So thank you.
Thank you. Pastor?
First, the members of Calvary Baptist Church that are present, would you please stand? First thing I want to say to you, Ward 5, thank you for allowing us to be heard. The first impression I want to tell you that I'm really overwhelmed by all the stuff, and I'm reasonably educated. There's a lot of stuff going on. But I have prepared a statement that we have prepared to this board. I stand before you tonight to provide clarification on a letter that was dated on June 10th, 2025, which addresses allegations implied by various sources. It's important to me that my presence and our presence is not perceived as an opportunity to confront or challenge, but rather to foster understanding and collaboration. Calvary Unified Baptist Church, located at 1520-30 Herkimer Street, have been a vital part of this community for 44 years. In fact, at this point, we are the longest landowner in the areas that's being considered for development. We have navigated through difficult times, and these have been some difficult times. I pastored that church 42 years ago. I'm the bishop now. This is the current resident pastor. But 42 years ago, I pastored there. I met my wife there. We got married in that building, and my first child was dedicated in that building. So we have provided uplift and spiritual support to those we serve. Our commitment remains strong. We have no intention of selling or abandoning this moment in our community, because so many people rely upon us, whether through our food pantry, our Christian education, or safe haven. Our attorney, William Wagstaff, has been in discussion with the developer regarding the proposed project. The church officers have not consented to allow any development of our property, and we were not involved in the initial planning stages. We have agreed to pursue a appraisal on our current property for better understanding of the value, because we don't know how much value we have. It is our understanding that the current zoning of the property is an M1-2, which permit churches and not residential housing. We have been informed about a final draft of environmental impact statement or study, which we were not involved in the design. However, the church officers are open to the idea of discussing rezoning to C64, provided there is a meaningful input from both the church community, local residents, including block association. The vision of Calvary Unified Baptist Church has always been to serve as a religious hub, offering essential support services. We're open to the idea of residential affordable housing mixed with some usage of current properties, which are in question. We aspire to be a beacon of hope and a beacon of light in the changing, and we continue to seek the best solution to serve our community. We desire to be a church on the corner that opens its doors to succeeding generation. We are not pro-growth, but it has to make sense. And at this time, this is the first time there were people said that they could not reach us, but the church is open every Thursday with long lines of food pantry. Every Sunday morning and incremental during the week, there's somebody there. Every Wednesday. So when it was said that the church does not exist, I don't know where that came from, but we are there. And we want to be in partnership. We don't want to be adversarial. We want to be in partnership because we've been there when that area had been blighted. We've been there when they used to use that area to throw trash and dead bodies. We've been there. And so we're not we're not anti-development, but we're pro-development. Now, let me say this. I said I'm overwhelmed. I think they need to revisit 20 stories and 30 stories building and having 1,000 families in that little parcel of land. That's a lot. I mean, that is a lot. And I understand that developers they have to make sense to them of what their profit margins are. But the community need to be sensible in that. We need to sit down with us, the church, and the developers, and come out with an equitable, suitable, sensible plan that will lift that blighted area for the past 44 years. And thank you. This is our pastor here, our resident pastor, Pastor McLean. I'm the divine bishop. This is our third brother, the pastor. There are people there. We just brought a fragment of people, but it's necessary. We can bring hundreds of people if y'all need us. Yes. We just brought a little bit. Is that right? Thank you. And y'all have the letter. Yes.
And the certification that was filed.
He said the certification that was filed.
The certification that was filed by Totem. In the certification that was filed by Totem. In the certification that was filed by Totem, it has your property, the church, and it says about 22,000 square feet. It says about the breakdown of apartments and so forth. Did you agree to that?
Come here. Let me see this. So let me get that mic. I can't answer to something that I don't know nothing about. Okay. So the answer is this. Whatever has been presented comprehensively, I had a meeting with the developers early on.
Right.
And they brought me up to speed.
Right.
The first time I saw this document, it was delivered to me by email, and I had a chance to peruse it. The church at this point did not authorize anybody to use it as a means of certification. However, as I previously indicated to you, we're not pro-development. Because I don't want nobody to say, because the last time I was at a meeting, I walked outside the meeting, got a telephone, and said I blew up the project. That's not the intention of the church, to blow up a project when there is a housing deficit in the city of New York. There is a housing deficit. And many of the people who are homeless are black and brown people because the housing shortage does not make it affordable. It's like supply and demand. There's a great demand but limited supply. Yes, so we're not trying to blow up any project. We're just saying that we need to be in partnership with the developers, and it need to make sense that we don't be overcrowded. Because where I feel today, what is presented, it is going to be overcrowded for that little car. We've been there 44 years, and we know how this, and they don't take it in the back. I don't know how they don't take this also, that the train station up the block, there is at least several hundreds of people. Once work is over, walk from the train down to Long Island Railroad. Not some days, every day from Monday to Friday, a large number of them. And that's been happening for years. And I don't see where that will not subside. I see it that it will be greater. And I don't know if what they're proposing will sustain those number of people that they are proposing. So, but let me also say, we're not anti-development, but we want to be in partnership, something that makes sense. Now, don't pick us apart. This is the group here. I'm the principal spokesperson. This is the group. These four men here are the official representatives of the church backing by our congregation. I need to say that, people do that. They try to start taking people's numbers and names. You can call whoever you want to, but if it don't come through us, it won't happen. That's yours. That's mine. Any questions?
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Pastor. I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll take one or two. Michelle, I'll take your question. But we have two other presenters. So I'll take the question. I thank you, Pastor. I'm sure Totem, Mr. Tucker, I'm sure Mr. Tucker will be in touch with you guys.
Can I just say one thing? Bishop, thank you very much for your words tonight, and we had a great sit down today. I think the start of a long working relationship on this, so we really appreciate it. Thank you, sir. All right.
Thank you very much to you and your congregation for coming out. I would just let y'all know that the community board is here. We're fighting for you. Even though you weren't a part of it, we were fighting for you anyway. So I'm looking forward to being able to bring this home with the community, with the church, and with Totem. On June 25th, we have our general board meeting. You guys are welcome to come at 6:30 at the same building.
Okay, I have two questions. One, with a project that has such tenuous commitments in terms of the other buildings, not the first building, given that you have the large-scale development permit that you're applying for, what are the monitoring and enforcement procedures for violations of those restrictive declarations? Have ULURP designations ever been pulled from a developer that violates the restrictive declarations? That's one question. The other question is on MIH. Was there consideration given to mapping the most deeply affordable MIH designation, the one that's in the East New York rezoning area?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
Let me answer the second question first, and the first question second. This is being mapped as an MIH district.
So it's 20% at 40%.
Well, it's being at the lower income level MIH, which is sort of irrelevant because MIH anticipates a development that's market rate and affordable. So what MIH does is MIH takes to the rest of it applies to the rest of the site. That's the question. The other question you asked is what's the enforcement mechanism? In restrictive declaration before the city, and this has been done, there's examples. The most important enforcement that any building owner concerns themselves with is certificate of occupancy. That is, without a certificate of occupancy, you can't collect rent. You can't occupy a building. And what the habit of restrictive declaration is to go against the owner's certificate of occupancy. It's a very draconian sword that hangs over you. Whoever is lending the money to build the building will be extraordinarily interested in compliance because their interest is until the building is occupied, people pay rent. There's no way of paying back any of the debt on the building. So, and the city has used restrictive declaration mechanisms to enforce those restrictions in the past. Fortunately, not a lot of times, because fortunately in large-scale plans, they tend to be compliant because that's what they want.
He didn't answer the question.
Hiring lawyers and engineers to get
Could you answer the question?
I think, you mean the clarity on the enforcement mechanisms?
Yeah.
Okay. So, restrictive declarations are legal documents that get recorded against the land and run with the land, right? The signatories to the CBA, which will usually be a nonprofit group. There's a number of groups we're talking to. We're also happy to take the lead from the board and their recommendations about groups you'd like us talking to. Have enforcement mechanisms in that legal document, either monetary damages or lawsuit ability to take away things like TCOs and permits that actually allow people to live in the buildings, or there are legal remedies embedded into the restricted declaration that the signatory to the restricted deck would have the ability to enact on the behalf should there be any violations.
Did that answer your question, Michelle?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Totem. Thank you. We're gonna call up our next presentation, which is EDC.
Okay.
Do you have it, Alice?
Yeah.
You have it. Okay, great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Haya Rizvi, Assistant Vice President at New York City Economic Development Corporation. I'm joined by my colleague, Joanne Herskowitz, as well as Gigi Lee, and our partner at NYPD, Sergeant Mike. Thank you. I've never said it out loud. We're pleased to present today at a CB5 Land Use Committee a short summary of the public realm improvements that we presented in the past to many of you, and we will try our best to keep it short since we're running late. There are 4 discretionary land use actions as part of our land use procedure application today. Today, Broadway Junction is a transit hub. Turning to what's numbered as slide 2, the first kind of page after the yeah, there we go. Today, Broadway Junction is a transit hub with incredible transit access but a degraded public realm. Public land is largely occupied by PD and MTA operational sites that are enclosed by fencing and overgrown shrubs and littered with garbage. Overhead infrastructure further creates an unsafe and dark condition for pedestrians moving through the sites and the area, which is made worse by inconsistent sidewalks. We are pleased to share that the city has secured $130 million for public realm investments with the goal of creating safer, more comfortable streets and new and beautiful publicly accessible open spaces. Much needed in Community District 5 with one of the worst open space ratios per person in the city. At the core of this work, we're taking back public land for public uses. This project will complement other public and private investments in the area, like the $400 million MTA is putting into Broadway Junction Station to make all subway platforms at the station ADA accessible, and the recent opening of 2440 Fulton Street, which houses offices for New York City Social Services, bringing SNAP, Bears, and other benefits to this community. The building also features a parking garage with over 320 spaces and some dedicated parking for DSS. This project that we're presenting today will deliver 2 new public open spaces. The first, an extension of Callahan Kelly Playground to reclaim the full extent of the parkland around the station head house by relocating the current Transit Police District 33 station to another nearby site. And the second, a smaller public plaza across the street on the east side of Van Sinderen on property that is currently occupied by MTA. There are also 2 streetscape projects as part of this funding, one on Van Sinderen between Atlantic Avenue and Fulton Street, and a second on Broadway between Jamaica Avenue and Truxton. These projects will prioritize creating safer streets for all modes of transportation, improving connections between neighborhoods, the subway, and the LIRR. EDC released RFPs to procure design and engineering teams for both the streetscapes and the Callahan Kelly Playground extension, which are currently in the procurement process. We anticipate that design for all of these projects will start later this year, and we'll gather feedback from the community on the design as it progresses. Construction start for these projects is targeted 2028 and will be completed in 2031. Turning the page to slide 3. To implement this project, we are seeking approval for 4 discretionary land use actions, which we will discuss in further detail on the following slides. Turning the page again. Number 4. It should be land use action number 1. To implement this new plaza known as the Callahan-Kelly Playground Extension, we are seeking a site selection action. Today, NYPD Transit Police Station occupies about 15,000 square feet of mapped parkland within Callahan-Kelly Playground. This facility is located above grade, as shown in white on the map on your slide, which limits visibility and accessibility to the subway entrance and park from the street. This land use action will allow us to deliver a half-acre of new public open space, thereby extending Callahan-Kelly Playground to create a combined total of over 4 acres of open space. Regrading at the corner of Fulton Street and Van Sinderen Avenue will enhance visibility and access to both the Broadway Junction station entrance as well as the park, which will better accommodate pedestrian volumes as well as improve wayfinding. Amenities and design of this space could include things like new seating, public art, vendor spaces, plantings, the details of which will be developed through a continued design and engagement process. Turning the page to the next land use action, that should be land use actions number 2 and 3. To accommodate the new Callahan-Kelly Playground Extension, the existing NYPD transit facility that is located at Broadway Junction Station must be relocated. The second land use action is needed for the city to relocate NYPD 2 blocks south to a portion of 1508 Herkimer Street and acquire a new purpose-built building for NYPD Transit Bureau 33rd District. The new station will be a 4-story, 35,000 square foot building. This is the right size of the existing facility to meet the current size and demographics of district staff. There will be no increase in staffing at the facility. It will feature a transparent ground floor and a street-facing community room. The NYPD will also continue to maintain a small presence inside Broadway Junction Station. The new facility will also provide off-street parking for the district's vehicle fleet, which will reduce NYPD parking on the streets around Broadway Junction. Although design for the building is still being developed, we wanted to share a floor plan with you as an example of how the building could be laid out at the ground level. With the multi-purpose community room having a dedicated entrance off of Van Sinderen and the parking access behind the building. It is anticipated that construction of the new PD facility will begin in 2026 and be completed in 2028. Due to budget constraints and the needs of the NYPD facility, only a portion of the lot is needed for this project. The third land use action will allow the remaining half of the lot to be developed in the future by the owner of the site so that there is a sufficient light and air into any future building on that portion of the site as well. Turning the page to land use action number 4. The last component of the planned public realm improvement The last component of the planned public realm improvements is to transform a portion of an MTA-controlled parking lot on the southeast corner of Van Sinderen Avenue and Fulton Street into a 5,000 square foot public plaza. The last land use action will allow the city to develop a new public plaza on this lot. We will coordinate the design and implementation of Van Sinderen Plaza with the planned Herkimer-Williams public plaza immediately to the south to ensure a cohesive and enhanced design across both projects. Combined, the plazas will create a total of 10,000 square feet of new public open space, allowing pedestrians to walk through what today is fenced off to the public. EDC will lead design and construction for both sites together, and Totem will be responsible for maintaining the full open space in the future. The new plaza could feature amenities such as seating, planting, and lighting, which will continue to be developed in the future design and engagement phases of this project. Turning to the next slide, you should see workforce at the top of the slide. Our investments in public realm will be paired with workforce and MWBE strategies to support training and business growth in the local community around Broadway Junction and East New York. EDC set a 30% target for MWBE firms for the Callahan Kelly Playground Extension design contract, and we will exceed the 7% federal disadvantaged business goal for the streetscapes projects. EDC's Construct NYC program is also prioritizing local businesses in its forthcoming cohort to ensure that more local businesses are pre-qualified to participate in the construction of EDC's public realm projects in the area. Additionally, EDC just announced $1.4 million in funding to 5 local nonprofit organizations to expand workforce programs in East Brooklyn, which will prepare job seekers for future opportunities. This includes training in welding and green construction trades. The upcoming construction contracts for the Broadway Junction public realm projects will also include a community hiring goal of that 30% of all labor hours are performed by residents-based community hires, which will prioritize hiring from NYCHA residents and residents from economically disadvantaged areas. That includes the areas of East New York, Cypress Hills, Brownsville, Ocean Hill, and Bushwick. Turning to our summary slide, this is the last slide of the presentation, the rest is appendix slides. The Broadway Junction Public Realm Project will reclaim public space for the community by delivering 2 new public open spaces next to the Broadway Junction station. Paired with our streetscape improvements on Broadway and Van Sinderen, our investments will improve access to transit throughout the area, making streets safer for all users. The dilapidated NYPD Transit District Number 33 facility will be relocated from Broadway Junction Station into a new building that will better meet the department's operational needs so they can better serve the millions of commuters who use the city subway system. These improvements are bolstered by expanding workforce development opportunities for the community and a larger neighborhood-wide strategy to advance economic growth in the East New York IBC. As we advance these public realm improvements, we will continue to engage the community on the design to ensure community voices are represented in this process. And that's all for our presentation. We'll open it up for Q&A.
You said something about Totem being responsible for maintaining the open space. Is that what you said?
Please, sorry.
The question was, she said something about Totem being responsible for the maintenance of the open space. Could you answer why Totem would be responsible for your property?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that question. So I think what Totem referred to earlier as part of the Herkimer-Williams project is we've been coordinating, and that's something that I know you all have asked us to do to ensure that the combined plaza, so you take the 5,000 square feet of the city-owned public access, public open space, plus the 5,000 square feet of the Herkimer-Williams public access area. Together, the combined plaza will be designed and constructed by EDC. And we know and have heard, I recall actually being in this room 2+ years ago, I think I was very pregnant, and there are a lot of questions about who's going to maintain those open spaces. And we have a real opportunity with Totem being here to have a third party who will ensure that the maintenance is held to a high standard of those public open spaces. So that is something that we are working with them to ensure that it is recorded on their property and that the city enters into a maintenance and operations agreement with Totem to ensure the high standards of maintenance of those 2 plazas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
When we bring up that maintenance question, that's something that needs to be built into the restrictive declaration as well.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at this, it's not 2 separate projects. It's like everything all in one.
Understood.
Yes, thank you. Al, then board member Odessa and Terrell.
Real quickly, the question is in reference to the property located across from the Calvary Church. I know it's underneath the train tracks, and I know the discussion was about maintenance. The issue is 1, the noise pollution. Number 2, we all know that paint chips, and from what I'm understanding, that's lead and that's carcinogen. So I'm just trying to think how a public space where folks look to relax and the community was giving a location underneath a train track where the train goes by every 7 minutes.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Al, by the way. It's been a minute. So thank you for that question. I think without a doubt, you're right. Noise is something that we'll have to think about and plan for very carefully as part of the design of the project. I think we all know there's lots of different open spaces around and underneath, elevated, whether it's subways or the Manhattan Bridge, for example. There are different strategies that I think can be deployed as we start to design the new open space. In particular, like vegetation, trees can help with the attenuation of that noisy subway overhead. Positively, we're not fully underneath the elevated, so we're more adjacent to it. But we felt like it's worth it to reclaim this space that has been used by the MTA for a long time now, for their operational uses, for a new public open space there. But definitely something that we'll have to carefully consider for as part of the design once that gets started later this year.
A transit museum.
A transit museum.
Good to see you again. The last time that you came before us, you talked about the 30% of the BBE goal for the playground extension. And I did bring to your attention that it's a fraudulent program. And that the controller's report, an evaluation of the MWB program showed that most, it was millions, I forget how many millions, of dollars went to white men, not even white women, for that program, and made a recommendation to find another source to try to uplift those types of businesses for this project. Have you considered any other outlets aside from the MWB? I'm an MWB, so I have nothing against using MWB, but we know that the flow of the project hasn't been hindered. Have you given any thought to other sources?
Thank you so much for that question. And definitely something that our MWB department looks at very carefully when they review the certification that we get with each construction company. We also work through Construct NYC, a program that we specifically try to deploy to minority women-owned businesses in the construction trades to give them unique certification so that they can better prepare for our construction projects. But to answer your question specifically, what we've started to do is look at the discrepancy within the MWB certification so that we have specific targets for example, an African woman-owned business, African American woman-owned business like yourself, and try to target that so that we are not finding that the funds are going to, frankly, just white women-owned businesses, which is the predominant, I think, use of MWB certifications that we find within the city. I do hear what you're saying. I can't speak specifically to the challenges that you are noting, but please note that we take this very seriously at EDC. We have an entire team dedicated to analyzing our contracts for MWB personnel, and work closely with the city who does the certification, as you know, of small business services.
Quick question. So my question was kind of similar to MWB, but more so for the workforce development. So I know you said that there was money awarded to these organizations, but is it something that, or how do you track after the money is, or how the money is allocated, or what hiring comes from these actual organizations? Is there some type of program to track that? Or thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So, first of all, I want to acknowledge that the Economic Development Corporation doesn't normally do this, and this was a really exciting pilot project that we were able to start with this East Brooklyn Workforce Fund. And what I mean by that is small business services normally does more targeted workforce development. So we have a new team. They're called the Economic Mobility Team within the Economic Development Corporation. They are responsible for this RFP. They led the procurement. They helped find the organizations that we now have awarded the $1.4 million. Actually, Bill Wilkins and LDC of East New York was one of the awardees. He was here earlier. So they will be working to develop metrics as part of the contracts with each organization over what I understand to be probably a 2-year period. And so working closely with them to understand how has the program advanced, what type of recruitment have they done, what type of advertisement and outreach in the local community have they done, to ensure and track what are the jobs and what are those trainings. So that's something that our team at EDC will be working very closely on.
Juliana, it's good seeing you. Hope the little one is thriving, and I mean that with the deepest of love as a kindergarten teacher. I'll be remiss if I don't mention this point, and I don't mean to go on a tangent, but it's very quick, because we have a council member representative here. But the last question that Michelle mentioned in that last segment is very important. How legally enforceable, sufficiently enforceable, is a restrictive declaration? City council will be one of the accountability forces there, so we're going to be looking for you on that line, and staffing nurse, okay? But to EDC, I'm a little disappointed. Actually, I'm very disappointed, I'm going to say, because these are 3 follow-up questions that I've had in email. You gave us a ground floor plan for the transit police. I cannot in good conscience, and it would be irresponsible of me to vote for, I think this is land use action number 2, when I don't even know what's going on in the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th floor of the transit police precinct, where right now we only have 1 floor. And this is just misleading. You showed me the nice community room, you showed me the parking, but what is happening in the rest of the building? So that's question 1. Question 2. I'm going to take this up for Julia, a committee member who's not here. She mentioned this before. Why not acquire the rest of the site? Why not maximize public good and leave that in the hands of a private developer? We are in the business in this committee and this community board of removing land that is private off of the speculative private sector. And then my third part is a dedicated pedestrian walkway that minimizes taking away park space from the northwest to the southeast to make sure that we can traverse directly southeast to northwest through that MTA space. And you can't tell me, oh, that's MTA space. No, the plaza that you're building, the plaza on Massillon and Herkimer is MTA space. So those are 3 points.
Thank you, Boris. I appreciate it. And I do just want to say, we tried to address your questions in the presentation, but I appreciate you holding me accountable, and I want to make sure that we answer them. So also, Sergeant is up here to answer the question as well. Maybe first, just to tackle the second 2. So on the budget one. So I really appreciate that question, and this is actually something that we tried to do. We looked at acquiring a whole site. And unfortunately, people may recall that that portion of the west side of Van Sidran was rezoned. The value of that site was rezoned in the 2016 rezoning. And so our budget, which includes, demolition of the existing transit police station, construction of a new public plaza in its place, regrading that entire corner. We don't even know what the utilities are like underneath there, as well as building out a new purpose-built facility and acquiring land underneath it. Our budget is constrained and capped and could not include acquisition of the remainder of the site. So I really appreciate that question. I wish we could do more, but it was not possible with the budget that we have allocated. And on your last question on MTA, Boris, we tried to show on that slide the potential connections. You can pull the image, it's right there actually. The potential connections that are now being created through this new public open space, right? But I recognize that might not be the desire line that you're referencing. I'm happy to have a conversation conversation with MTA. MTA, as we all know, can be a difficult one to engage with. But, you know, this is, we think, at the very least, opening up new access lines and connections north-south through the combined public open space, which is very exciting. But I'm happy to continue the conversation as well on that. And so I want PD to talk.
Good evening, it's Sergeant Mike Mazzolette from NYPD Facilities. Very easily to answer it, you'll find that it's mostly administrative offices and locker rooms. There's not much else to it. I think the whole 4th floor is administrative offices, and a good portion of the 3rd floor, probably 3/4 of it, you'll find to be locker rooms. So if I can answer anything else specifically, you know, please feel free. It'll be fine. So probably you're gonna have some cells maybe accounting for less than 1/4 of the 2nd floor. It's a small holding area. We're talking about maybe 3 or 4 holding pens and a small juvenile detention room, which were required by the state to have.
An increase from the current space, though, in terms of cell.
Well, I'm not actually sure what the current space has right now, but the facility as a whole is increased in size, and it's to meet the current demands that the transit police have. If you ever have gone to Transit District 33 now, it's like sardines stuffed into a can. It's such a small facility, and we're really kind of bursting at the seams. Yeah, you know, we don't want it to be this mysterious thing where we're not really sure what's going inside of the police precinct, and of course we can't divulge, you know, everything to you. There are certain aspects of policing that we have to keep internal, but in terms of floor space, it truly is mostly administrative offices and locker rooms. You actually would be surprised how many locker rooms that they have to account for us. So we have approximately 200 command staff in TD33. So you could imagine that it's quite a bit, you know, of locker space that we have. Thank you.
When we talk about those administrative officers, are those specific to the Transit District 33, or is that for NYPD?
So it's NYPD wide. We have, just for example, we have our administrative lieutenant's office, integrity control officers. They look at what the officers are doing and making sure that they're held to high standards at all times. We have our neighborhood coordination officers. Their sergeant and the officers have a space as well. And this is a universal NYPD staff, for the most part. Transit District. So, I mean, TD33 in its current state, I believe, is on MTA grounds. This new building will be an NYPD owned, or city-owned rather, NYPD facility, not in partnership with the MTA in any shape or form. Yeah. Oh yes, of course. It's going to still function as you know, a police facility. It's just on a separate grounds. Am I answering your question? Yeah. Okay.
Project, I recall them, I've been following references Interborough Express for the MTA. Is that factored into this, or is that in a whole other direction or area? It looks like it runs straight down into Broadway Junction. I'm trying to figure out how that process, how that factors into this as well. Is that in the design? Is that in the plan?
Not entirely, but thank you for that question. You're right that the MTA is planning on putting passenger service on the Bay Ridge Freight Line, which runs basically underneath Broadway Junction. They have publicly identified that there will be a future station on the north side of the Atlantic Avenue Service Road. So probably very close to this area that we're talking about, near the Long Island East New York Ave station. But they're a long ways away. They are still in the planning and environmental review phase for that project, and that is the MTA that's leading that, so not us.
So I was thinking reference to the cost. We've already not factoring that design, we've already seen it, already made moves that done. We're in reference to that project. They're literally planning on holding on the train line into this. Are we going back to the drawing board? Is this going to be the second bite of the apple as far as redesign, or is this going to be things that are already factored in? How's that going to affect? How's it going to affect transit as far as even how we get through that area?
Oh, I think I want to make sure I understand what you're asking. You're saying, would we have to change any of our plans because of the future IBX proposal? No, it should not have any implications on our current project. MTA is very aware of our project. We've been in touch with them pretty much monthly over the past 2 years. Oh, someone else had a question. Oh, about the paint chips. They also have been painting and fixing all of the paint, thankfully, in the elevators in this area. That's also part of their capital project. So thank you for that question, but no, we don't anticipate any changes to our proposal.
Ryan from the City Councilwoman Sandy Nurse's office.
Can you clarify how many staff members will be at?
That's what I was just going to ask.
We have approximately 200 members assigned to TD 33, and there will be no increase of members. It's just a lateral going from one building to another.
That's the total capacity.
Oh, this
right?
is
At
the
any
total.
given time.
At any given
On any given day, how many staff members will be at that site?
So, for example, let's just say day tour, which is 7 in the morning to 3 p.m. We have about 45 people assigned to the day tour, and that includes uniforms and civilians.
And the PM tour, and then the night?
The PM tour, we have approximately, there's a lot of overlap there, and the command actually has details that fly out, but we're looking at more of approximately 100 members at that time. And overnight, it's about 23.
Our concern also was parking.
Yes.
And as I stated, Broadway Junction, I'm very familiar with the area. And right now, the police park everywhere. Yes. On the sidewalks, just all over that property, right? And to me, you guys didn't take that into consideration when EDC built what it is that they built. I think you said something about 10 parking spaces that you guys are gonna have for the police department. I just wanna know where those cars are gonna park. If you're taking the lot from MTA, where are those police cars gonna park? Because we can't have it the way it is now. The way it is now, they're on every sidewalk, every block. I mean, and to say that it's 10 parking spaces, is that just for upper management? And why not utilize the spaces that Totem, the 5,000 they have and the other 5,000 together to come together and put parking? That's something that the community has been saying over and over and over again. When we went there and they asked for suggestions for the 5,000 square feet, we said we wanted something to cover that open space because people riding the train, throw something out, somebody could get hurt. You guys are not taking that into consideration. Why don't you just combine it, put some parking there so that the community can benefit from that as well? Have the police park some of their vehicles and the community as well. We keep alluding 10 parking spaces. The police officers do not take Long Island Railroad to Broadway Junction. They drive their cars to Broadway Junction. They park wherever they choose. And I get it, there's no parking space. But let's be real with it. We're being a realist. We're adding on to the burden. We're not taking away. We're moving them from one place, we're shuffling from one building to the other building, but we still have this same problem. So why can't we use that public funding and do something with the parking?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Chair. As you said, I think there'll be a net gain of 10 parking spots, and a lot of them are assigned to command RMPs that are police cars. Right now, we're in active negotiations with our sister agencies, both city and state, to obtain more off-site parking. It's not, we don't want to burden the community with, parking issues from our members. The goal is to alleviate that burden. And so right now we've started these conversations with our sister agencies, and we hope to obtain significant off-site parking for our police officers in the near future. I don't know if EDC has anything to add.
Chairman, that we've heard you, and this is why PD has started the conversation with MTA to try to get some spaces there, because we understand that this is a major concern and want to be responsive to that request.
Thank you.
I love that question, Michelle. I can't say we've thought that far ahead yet, but maybe something that we can start to think about as we start design about, at the very least, having space for flexible programming, right? A space that could accommodate that. Not yet, no, not yet.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have one more presentation. The last presentation is CP Unlimited. Welcome, and thanks for staying to the end. We're sorry that you're the last, but we know you're going to knock it out the park.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for having us aboard, and thanks for the community members for hanging in there with us. We're excited about a project located at 2863 Atlantic, a piece of property that we want to develop. My name is Joe Pancari. I'm the president and CEO of CP Unlimited. We are a nonprofit agency. We've been serving the community here in Brooklyn and all of the city since 1946. So we're almost 80 years old, and we're going to be hopefully around for at least another 80 or more years after this project, and many more community-based programs that we've been supporting. So we initially started, as you may know, an agency called New York State Association for New York. What's that name? Cerebral Palsy Association of New York State. Thank you. A few years ago, we changed our name to CP Unlimited because we want to broaden who we support. Instead of focusing only on folks with intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities, autism, Down syndrome, we have many skills that we felt we can help the community and help our agency to develop. Over the last few years, we've been serving the communities, each borough, with clinics, FQHC clinics, federally qualified health centers, open to everybody in the community, and those specifically are designed to help communities with low access to medical supports. So we have primary care, dental, audiology, cardiology, everything you can think of. They serve folks with IDD, but they're open to the community, and actually thousands of people use it each year. We also have transportation companies. Recently, we've been awarded contracts to help people who are in transitional housing to get permanent housing, which we're very proud of. We've been awarded grants with OMH to help people who have behavioral health issues stuck in hospitals in Hudson Valley and get them into good housing and stable housing. And we're excited about this project, which we'll hear more from our team, and they'll introduce themselves, where we're trying to do affordable housing. But we're excited to be here. We're proud of our tradition, and we're looking forward to continuing being good neighbors. We have over 30 programs here in Brooklyn, many right here in this neighborhood. And so we've been good neighbors, and we're going to continue to do that in a very effective way. So thank you for having us.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Manuel, and I'm the Vice President of New Initiatives. And don't forget to add that we also have our day programs as well as vocational opportunities in Brooklyn, where we help individuals to be able to find work in the community. So tonight we're here to talk about a proposed building located at 2863 Atlantic Avenue. And we're proposing to have 70 units, and it's at the corner of Barbie Street. The building will be 12 stories and will be 53,485 square feet with amenities that includes a 7th floor outdoor gathering space, community space for residents, a laundry, reception area, free broadband services, office space for private meetings, with tenants in the supportive housing. So this proposed project actually is for the workforce and also for supportive housing as well. So we're proposing to support individuals who are coming out of foster care system and who are at risk of becoming homeless. And because of her experience working in the community, providing case management services in the community, we are confident that we're able to serve the individuals that are coming out of foster care, as well as making sure that we're accommodating the community by having units also available as well for community members. The apartments that we're proposing for our supportive housing will all be studio units, and the apartments that we're proposing for families and for individuals will be 1 bedrooms as well as 2 bedroom apartments as well. Studios, I'm sorry. So we're here tonight because we would like to have the community offer us a support letter because we're trying to get financing for this project, which is actually due next month. And because we know that you guys are going on recess very shortly, we're hoping that you could accommodate us in providing us with this letter of support. I also want to add that we're going to be providing services for the supportive housing component because these are individuals who are between the age of 18 and 25 years old who will need support to be able to live more independently in the community. We're going to be having staff on site, as well as we're going to be having security as well for the individuals, right? Because again, these are young folks who need assistance, and we're hoping that these individuals will eventually move out and allow other individuals that are aging out as well to move into these units. Supportive housing units. So I will pass it over to my colleague, Mary Beth.
Hi, Mary Beth Matta. I'm a consultant on the project. I can tell you just a little bit about the building security. We really understand and appreciate the importance of the security of the building, not only to the tenants, but also to the neighborhood. So there will be on-site security 24/7. There will be security cameras on the outside and the inside of the building. There will be controlled access to the building, and the exterior will be well lit. Again, that will be 24/7, and that's something that is required by funders. From here, I'm going to turn it over to our architectural partner, Magnuson Architects, and Kamala Sharma. But first I want to say that we are looking for this letter of support, which Teresa pointed out, but also if we can't get it, we'd like to get a letter that says that we have presented to you and that we have given you an opportunity to ask questions. And that's really our minimum bar in the very short term, but what we would really love is this month to get a letter of support from you at your full board meeting. So I'll share.
I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the building itself. So we have this aerial shot here. I think it's third to last in the slide deck that shows it in context with the neighboring buildings. This is a 12-story building, and right across from it, Atlantic Avenue is a 10-story building. And then just diagonal to that is a 15-story building. And then you can see 15-story building on the left, on the bottom left there as well. So, and then beyond you can see some residential buildings. So we're really designing this building to be kind of a bridge between the taller buildings on Atlantic Avenue and some of the lower buildings behind. Look to the next page. We have a sketch. So this is on Barbie Street, where you can see there's a setback at the 7th floor level. This kind of speaks, this is a zoning requirement. So this building is completely as of right. We're complying with all zoning regulations for this building. So this setback is there as part of the zoning requirement, but we will be using that as a landscape terrace space for the residents of the building. Right adjacent to that landscape terrace is a amenity space for the residents. Also on this rendering, you can see we have several other setbacks, and we will be taking advantage of all of those roofs for green roof space. And we also have some solar panels that we expect to have in this building as well. If you look on the next page, we have rendering at the corner, where you can see more of like the design, the intended design of the building. It is primarily brick building, which is where the massing is broken up with these bands, these transparent bands that kind of break up the height of the building, make it more contextual with the surrounding buildings, the metal bands. Also there's a lot of transparency at the grade level, which is great because it kind of adds to the security of the area. The ground floor is going to be supported office spaces, and there is an entry, of course, to the residential lobby on Barbie Street, but most of the ground floor will be different programming elements that are related to the supported programs. So this will be active office spaces with eyes on the street and people coming in and out, and lots of glazing, and the same at the amenity level. There's going to be a lot of glass there. I think it's going to be a pretty nice building. Also, we're really strategically locating things so that we can maximize the amount of street trees that we have. So we'll have street trees, we'll have green roofs, and it's going to be nice.
I want to add one more thing to that. So I want to also add that of the workforce units, 10 units will be reserved for those with income below 50% of median income. Of the workforce units, 8 will have project-based Section 8 and will be reserved for those with income below 30% of the area median income. And the remainder of the workforce units, 9 will be reserved for those with income below 60% of the area median income. And there would also be 1 unit reserved for super. And 42 of these units will be allocated to the supportive housing individuals that we're serving. And that's our presentation.
Thank you.
First of all, I just want to ask, what do you mean by workforce housing?
First of all, that's my first question.
Workforce is a term that is widely used, but From my perspective, we often use workforce housing to describe housing for people who are incomes that would require them to work more than likely to afford the unit. And if you'd like, I can tell you what those incomes are. Is that you? Would you like that? Okay. That's something I can get to off the top of my head, so bear with me just for a second. And 57,000. We have some that are at 60% of median, and those would be for people between 65,000 and 69,000. And then some of those units will also be reserved for households with incomes between 30,000 and 33,000. Those are the project-based Section 8 units. And then we would anticipate that the 42 supportive units would have incomes between 0 and 30,000, and probably closer to the 0 plus whatever subsidies are available from the government. Am I clear, Chair? You have a confused look.
Yeah. These units that you're talking about, it says it's reserved for youth ages 18 and 25, right?
18 to 25, yes.
It's coming from transitional housing.
Right. So who's making $60,000?
Pardon me?
No, that's
No, so those are the other units. So we have two sets of units, let's say.
How many apartments with the units that you're talking about making the 53 to 57,000 and the 65 to 69,000, and then you said about the Section 8 base, you said that's from 30,000 to 33,000?
Yes,
right?
I did, yes.
So how many apartments, and then what is the square footage of the studios, the 1 bedrooms, the 2 bedrooms? Can we get some of that information?
Absolutely, of course. So first of all, there are 42 units, and those units are for the 18 to 25-year-old age group. And then there are 27 units, and those 27 units are not for that age group, so those are what we're terming workforce units. And then we have 1 additional unit, which will be a supers unit. And then, you asked about the footages. And hopefully I have that with me.
I can help with square footage of the apartments. Yes.
I have it right here. The net square footage of the studios will be 450 square feet, and the net square footage, on the average, I should say, right, of the 1 bedrooms will be 560 square feet.
500?
560.
Okay, good size.
2 bedrooms.
That's the 1 bedroom. We have no 2s.
Studios and 1 bedroom.
That's correct.
Any questions?
The square, when we talk about 18 to 25, aging out of foster care, we're talking about supportive services. Who's on site in a guidance capacity? Is there counseling? Is there, is there any integration into this plan that is like a whole life plan? And when we talk about these workforce units that are 50, 60,000, is that people that are counselors that are there with them? Or, I'm just trying to understand how you have 42 units for 18 to 25-year-olds who probably don't have the income to support a certain level of percentage of AMI. And they're coming out of foster care, so they need a support network. It's very confusing.
Sure. Sorry about that. So the folks that are there, Teresa can talk more about this, are in supportive housing. So first of all, there will be a subsidy coming from NYC 1550 that's going to complement the operations by providing rent that allows the folks to have additional support for that rent. So they'll pay 30% of their income, and then they'll pay some additional, which is consistent with the guidelines of the 1515. So those units stand separately. The remainder of the units are just standard affordable units. There's nothing special about them. They're not related to the supportive units. But in your package, there is one page that is a list of supportive services that will be provided on site. And part of what the new NYC 1515 gives you is this subsidy so that you can provide a full complement of services. And the idea behind those services is to prepare those 18 to 25 to live independently and possibly without those services. But Teresa can just...
And how often are those services provided? 7 days a week.
Yeah, it depends on the person's needs
Yeah,
as well.
right. So we talk about person-centered approach in service delivery, right? So these individuals that are going to be at this location will be receiving services 7 days a week, and that's going to be based on needs, right? And that's going to be based on preference. We're not going to mandate anyone to take services because that would go against the idea that the person that we're not considering the person's need first, right? So we will be providing vocational services, helping the person to be able to write a resume, helping the person to find employment, helping the person to be enrolled in school. And I just want to add to this also too that we also spoke to the City College, and they have quite a few individuals who are coming out of foster care and who are looking and who are homeless. So we're also thinking that these individuals would also be qualified for this type of housing as well. So we're going to assist them with money management, right? Helping them how to manage their money, how to budget their money, help them to link them to services in the community, whatever services that they need, whether it's medical services, whether it's counseling services. Case manager will be available 7 days a week providing services for these individuals based on their need and their preference.
So as we mentioned before, we have been doing service coordination, counseling, clinics for over 40 years. We're very confident that we can do this very successfully. Again, we've been here in Brooklyn, we've been in all the neighborhoods in the 5 boroughs and all the way up to Hudson Valley. We have many, many years of expertise in supporting people. As you mentioned, we're involved in many programs, both city and state, that are vocationally based, that help people get them up on their feet, give them skills, and help them to become more independent. That's what we're all about. That's what we've been about since 1949.
Yeah.
Where's one of your properties other than this one you're talking about?
So we have apartments in East New York. So we have group homes as well as we have supportive housing where our individuals are living independently in their own apartment and they receive a subsidy from OPWDD to support their rent. And we provide services for them, what we call community habilitation services, where staff goes to their home and assist them with whatever they need. If they need to be cleaning the apartment to keep it clean, if they need help with budgeting, help with paying their rent, whatever service that person needs, then we provide that service for that individual.
And we have over 90 apartments like that here in Brooklyn, as well as all across the 5 boroughs.
What's some of the addresses?
We do not give you exact addresses for people who we support.
Yeah, we can, yes.
Because there's a lot of community issues where we like to keep people safe as well.
How do we gauge what it is that you're saying if we can't reference anything?
Well, we certainly have a web page you can go to where people reach out if there's issues. CP Unlimited, www. And you can see both the issues and all the success that we've had.
At this location, how many staff do you have in place to service these folks?
For the supportive component, we're going to be having 2 case managers, a mental health counselor, a vocational specialist, a program director, a case supervisor, and so as well as a peer specialist as well.
And just to say, in addition to that, there will be a property manager, receptionist, there'll be a superintendent on site as well, and then the security in addition to that.
So this is as of right anyway, right?
Yes, it is, yes.
Just quickly, what was so the letter of support is for you, but going to the rest of the letter of support is for you, addressed to who?
It can be addressed just to CP to say, you know.
Yeah, but what are you going to use the letter of support for?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things. There's one particular source of funds that we want to go to at the state, and what they require is that we notify them through a letter from you saying that you have had an opportunity to hear about the project and to ask questions. If we go to HPD, which we believe we're going to do, we're going to do get a lot of the funding from the state, but we think at this point we're going to go to HPD as well. HPD will require that you give us a letter of support to say that you were in favor of this.
I'm sorry. I also want to mention that we have, you mentioned about our programs. We invite you to see our day settings and our clinics, which are public spaces, so that if you do want to see exactly what's going on and our skills, we truly, invite you to come in and, just let us know when you want to come, make an appointment and come on, see us.
Real quickly, once these units are online, what is your community engagement strategy to advertise the availability of these residents to community Board 5 residents? Which local community partners are we going to be partnering up with potentially? Because we know the community preference is dwindling. We have 50, 30, 20, those will be at 0 eventually. But we need to know your community engagement plan. So existing community residents have an opportunity to know about it so they can apply for it. Just to hear a strategy.
Yeah, I just want to speak about that. So we actually, and I may not sound enticing, but we actually partner with HBD on Housing Connect. So what we did a couple years ago, we actually came into the community and we solicited the community by going out and doing outreach. And we brought the community in our space at 91 East New York, and we spoke about how we could assist them with housing. And as of today, if anyone here who needs housing, especially those who have a disability, they can always come to us, and we will support them in identifying housing. And that's on our website. So if you go to our website, you'll see where it advertises that if you need assistance with housing, that we can support any person or persons who need housing. So we plan to also use our website to advertise. We plan to actually go into the community. We plan to go to the churches in the community and advertise about this project as well.
Additionally, when you take money from HPD is going to require you to go through Housing Connect, and I'm sure that's not the first time you've heard it. One piece of feedback that we did get through Maria, who is our government and community liaison here, is that some people are frustrated by the Housing Connect process. So we've started to talk about how we can assist, and we'd like to have some more conversation, but how we can assist people who are going to apply. I really do understand that, and I particularly understand it because somehow my firm's name got on a list of housing providers, and somehow it has my phone number, my direct office phone number, and I get calls from people who tell me stories that break my heart, and how they've been, trying to get something and trying to work with Housing Connect, and they have these horrible situations. And so I really do understand that, and I think we all do from our different perspectives. And want to really find ways to assist community members in being sure that they can access Housing Connect, that they put forth the best application, and they position themselves to very quickly be eligible for next housing that comes up.
Yeah, and we can assist them with that application as well. So if they need assistance with the Housing Connect application, we do this for free. There's no charge. We even have folks show up at our office at Rector Street to come and to get assistance. So we're open to assist the community if they need assistance with completing those applications. Once the units are on the website, the HPD website, we will assist with folks to complete the application process.
Thank you for your presentation and for the work that your organization does to support, especially youth that are transitioning out of foster care and providing services for them. I'm a midwife, so I work in the medical field. It's very important to be able to assess delivery of service and quality. I just came from the maternal mortality review committee earlier today, where we read the death cases of people who reside in different situations, and many of them we would have assumed they would get the services right on the spot, as some of what you're describing. But unfortunately, in fear of retaliation, they wouldn't even report that the services are suboptimal. Some living with rat infestations, stoves that don't work. So without the ability to assess the quality of the service delivery, I'm hesitant. Although I love what's being offered, I'm hesitant. You're getting subsidies. So what is the incentive to really provide the delivery service? Unless you're just discarding people, which I'm sure you are. But I need to know and be able to vet what it is that I'm signing on to. So that's my short answer.
So currently we do get subsidy from OPWD, right? So and we're required to ensure that those apartments are livable. Here's the thing, like we're in this business not because we're going to make money. It's about helping folks, right? And I can assure you, we go into those apartments to make sure that those apartments are maintained. I mean, and I'm talking about set-aside apartments. These apartments are going to be in a congregate setting, right? They're going to be right there in the building where staff will always, it's going to be 24/7, right? So there's no way. When it comes to certain entities like HPD, for example, when we get our audits from them and other entities, we have to make sure that those apartments are up to standard. And you think about it, I've been doing this work for almost 20 years. I would not be doing it because I'm here because it's not about making money, right? I live all the way in Connecticut and I'm here tonight. Because why? It's important to the organization to make sure that we explain to you guys that we're in the business of helping people. That's all we're here to do. We're not here to make a profit because as you know, 70 units and 42 of those units being supportive housing, we're not making money from this project.
But you can. I certainly invite you to go on to OPWD's website. We're in very good standing. I invite you to go on DHS website. We're in very good standing. We've recently been awarded, as I mentioned to you, an OTDA grant because we're a great provider. They wouldn't be giving us those grants and opportunities if they didn't know our reputation and how well we provide services to people. We recently again mentioned we received the OMH grant to support people. You can go on their website. In every entity, in every agency that we're supported, we are an outstanding agency. We get audited constantly. In every one of our homes, at least 3 times, we get cited all different kinds of audits, plus our agency gets audited at least every other year to make sure board procedures are being followed, make sure that everything is on the up and up. We're very proud of our history. You can check any one of our funding sources and guarantee you'll be very happy with what you see there.
And I want to also add that we were in the New York Times, right, for an apartment that we assisted an individual. She came out of the foster care system. She was homeless, and we basically helped her find an apartment. And she has an apartment today, And as of last week, she graduated from City College. And you know, and even though she has a disability, she's able to take care of herself financially, and with of course with assistance from staff, you know, supporting her to reach her goals.
I think it's important to lift up here that the comptroller just audited DHS. They didn't get
Okay.
and DHS was one of the agencies that inspired to have the manifestation.
Yeah, but
So I'm just
granted, but I'm mentioning several other entities that also audited us.
Yes,
Yes.
letting you know the point of reference. So
We have the phone. Understood.
This is why we're looking to support.
Understood.
So, I'm going to add a couple of things. First of all, I appreciate you and your career. And just to let you know that in my previous life, I was an epidemiologist, so I have some understanding of some of the things that you're talking about. And in this career, I can tell you that I've been doing supportive housing for 30 years. I own a company that does supportive housing, assisting nonprofits to do supportive housing. And so let me tell you what I know, which is that when you do this type of financing to do supportive housing, by the time it's done, every funder is going to know which teeth Joe has fillings in. And me, and Teresa, and everybody, and I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek there, but the due diligence is extreme. In addition, once the housing is built, every funder wants to be able to come and to look at that. So HRA is going to want to come and be able to look at those units. And then we're going to have a commercial bank. They're going to want to come and look at it. HPD is going to want to come and look at it. HHACOTA is going to want to come and look at it. HCR, which is the State Department of Housing and Community Resources, they're going to want to come and look at it. And they're going to want to make sure that by their standards, every single apartment on a rotating basis, as they look at them, is in the condition that they think. Lastly, that they think is good. Lastly, when we do these kinds of projects, we have an investor, and that investor comes in and brings in about 50% of the cost of the project, and that is typically a bank, and those banks want to be sure that these units, their investment, is the nearest thing it can be to perfection. So we would be also expecting that they will be coming, that they will be assessing, and they will be telling us that if something isn't right, that it has to be fixed. And what are their remedies if it's not? Is that they have the ability to eject the property manager, and they actually have the ability to eject the nonprofit if the project is not up to standards.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. And the reason why we were honing down on asking, do you have anything that we can gauge it on, is because we had a, as of right, facility that's coming into East New York. They offered us to come and do a site visit. The day we got there, they canceled. They wouldn't let us in. However, one of our board members asked to use the bathroom, and the condition the bathroom was in, a homeless shelter would look better. And that is the reason why we don't just blanketly give letters of support without being able to research it or have some reference or something like that. So that is the reason why you hear so many of us saying, so we can at least see exactly what you're talking about. It's one thing to say, I do A, B, and C, and then no one be able to see anything that you just referenced. So with that being said, we thank you very much. We will look on your website, like you said.
And I'm serious. I would invite anybody, if you want to come to any of our sites, our clinics, our day settings in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, in Manhattan. I welcome you. I promise you I will give you a personal tour. I will not cancel. And you can have my office name and number and come anytime you want. Just let us know so we can make sure that, the folks are there at the sites. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I just want, real quick, just to clarify what the letters are, okay? There could be two letters. One for the state financing is required, the application is gonna be at the end of next month. So that would just be a letter stating that, we discussed the project with you, that you reviewed it. And then the other letter of support for HPD, that doesn't have to happen immediately. So if you want to take up Joe on his offer of visiting the sites, I think we should maybe coordinate that with some folks on the committee. So that could happen, sometime over the summer. And then when you come back in September, we can talk about that letter of support, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, I'm gonna conclude. We don't have